I'm Matt McClure, and this is Currents. In the wake of devastation and death in Japan, we'll look at a new effort to help Haiti recover from last year's earthquake. Plus, celebrating the Mass with New York City's finest.
Every day, these men and women put their lives on the line, and we respect them for that. We praise them, and we want to support them.
And the Brooklyn Diocese welcomes children into the church.
Jesus always loves you, and he follows you wherever you go.
Well, good evening. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. Japan's deadly earthquake is now tied for fourth on the U.S. Geological Survey's list of strongest earthquakes since 1900. That after the USGS upgraded the magnitude to 9.0. The confirmed death toll grows every few hours, and as temperatures dip below freezing, search and rescue teams continue to look for the thousands of victims still missing. And meanwhile, Japan's chief cabinet secretary says the situation at the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear plant is not yet stable. Sandra Endo has the latest from Washington.
Scouring the rubble in Japan, the recovery of bodies continues. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton once again expressed America's support in a meeting with Japan's foreign minister at the G8 meeting in Paris.
I want to, on behalf of the United States, express both our condolence and our solidarity with the government and people of Japan.
The death toll climbs and the threat of more danger looms. The Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant remains unstable, with another explosion and fire Tuesday. Radiation readings reached dangerous levels, but those readings later fell.
We need now for everybody to move out of the 20-kilometer radius from the number one plant. We would like to ask you to remain indoors, at home, or in your offices.
And a 30-kilometer radius no-fly zone is now in effect over the plant. Some 800 workers evacuated. Only 50 remain to carry out essential work. For survivors of the deadly quake and tsunami, raw emotions surface as reunions and the search for loved ones continue.
It feels like the end of the world, and I've seen the look on people's faces right after an experience like this, and they're just in deep, deep shock.
CNN's Sandra Endo reporting there. Now, help for Japan is coming from all around the world, including from the Vatican. Pope Benedict donated $100,000 to the relief effort this week. But donations for Japan are lagging behind those from another recent disaster. In the 4 days since the earthquake, donations for Japan have totaled about $23 million. Now, by contrast, more than $150 million was raised in the first 4 days after last year's devastating earthquake in Haiti. Now, more than a year after that disaster, Haitians continue putting their lives back together one day at a time. Now they're doing it with help from the Knights of Columbus. The Catholic Fraternal Organization has opened a new facility to help amputees hurt in the quake. I recently had a chance to speak with Patrick Corton, Senior Vice President with the Knights of Columbus, to find out more about it. Well, Patrick, thank you so much for taking some time out for us here today on Currents. We appreciate your time.
Well, it's very nice to be with you, Matt.
Well, first of all, as we start out here, tell us a little bit about this new center that's opened up now in Haiti.
Well, the center that was opened up this past weekend in Haiti is very special because what it enables us to do for the very first time, really, is to not just provide prosthetic limbs to people who lost legs and arms during the earthquake, but actually to fabricate and fit them right there in Port-au-Prince. And that's something that nobody else can do. They've never had this kind of facility in Haiti before, even before the earthquake. So it's very special. It uses more advanced technology and higher-end prosthetics than are usually available in that kind of setting, especially in the aftermath of disasters like this. The Red Cross routinely uses a much less sophisticated device. So this is really a very special contribution to the health and the mobility of the people of Haiti who need these. So we're very proud of it.
Well, this is part of kind of an ongoing effort by you guys and some other groups as well, right?
Yes, it is. Immediately after the earthquake, we resolved to do whatever we could to try to fit the Knights of Columbus relief work into all of the other work that so many other groups are doing. We worked initially and continue to work really with the Global Wheelchair Mission, through which we had provided many thousands of wheelchairs all over the world. Our initial service there in Haiti was to provide some thousands of wheelchairs to people who had been rendered immobile by the earthquake. But in the process, we got to meet the people associated with Project Medishare, which is an effort on the part of a number of doctors from the University of Miami Medical School to provide higher quality health care in Haiti. And they've been doing that since the mid-1990s. We got to know them a bit and decided that this really might be a good opportunity for us to partner with someone who has long been involved in trying to improve the lot of the people in Haiti. This particular partnership, though, has worked out exceptionally well. And one of the things that they specialize in is prosthetics and orthotics. And that is desperately needed by a lot of people who were crippled in one way or another through the earthquake. So we committed up to $1 million that would in turn be used to provide any child and every child in Haiti who lost a limb in the earthquake with a prosthetic device. And that's our commitment, and we've already now fitted more than 100 of those youngsters.
What hindrances and challenges are there into doing this work, and how do you overcome those?
Well, it is very difficult. Haiti is a place with very little in the way of public services that we here in the United States simply take for granted. There's no municipal water provided. There's no municipal sewage. There's no trash pickup. There is practically nothing that is provided by the government. Everyone has to shift for themselves. No matter where you go in Port-au-Prince, and we drove around a good bit, no matter where you look, every square inch of ground that was not otherwise used for something is occupied by a tent in which probably a number of people are struggling to live and survive. They're very, very difficult circumstances. The people there, obviously, as you and your audience know, are very poor, and it is a very difficult thing from the outside to come in and say, we'd like to help, but where do you start? And the thing about the Knights of Columbus effort here that we made in conjunction with Project Medishare is we decided to pick one thing that really needed doing that we could actually accomplish in some reasonable period of time. And providing those prosthetic devices for people who have a desperate need for mobility was the thing that we decided to do. And I think by the end of the year we shall have accomplished our mission, accomplished our commitment to provide prosthetic devices to every child who suffered a loss of a limb in the earthquake.
Wow. And very quickly here, before we have to wrap up, how many children are we talking about? Is there any way to really know how many could possibly be helped by this effort?
We estimate the number at about 1,000. Obviously, there are adults who have also suffered that kind of limb loss, but we estimate that about 1,000 children are in need of prosthetic limbs.
All right. Well, it's a great work you guys are doing, and somewhere, obviously, that it is very, very much needed. Pat, thanks so much for taking some time out for us today. We really, really appreciate it.
Matt, I'm very grateful to you for having us on, and wish you and your audience well. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much. Good work they're doing there. Well, stay tuned. There's more currents coming up. One religious leader says governments need to reconsider nuclear energy in the wake of the disaster in Japan. That story and the rest of the day's headlines next. Welcome back to Currents. I'm Matt McClure. Coming up later, it is not graduation, but young people in Brooklyn take a big step forward. But first, let's have a look at the day's headlines. We are terrified. Those are the words of the Bishop of Sendai, Japan, one of the areas hardest hit by the earthquake last week. The bishop told Vatican Radio that people in other countries have a much better idea of the extent of the tragedy. Phone lines in Sendai were restored today, but the area has been without electricity since the quake struck last Friday. The bishop says people there have been relying on government announcements as their only source of information. He says he is still not aware of what happened to parishes along the coast of Japan. Meanwhile, the leader of the world's Orthodox Christians is calling on countries to abandon the use of nuclear energy. In a message to the people of Japan, Patriarch Bartholomew I called nuclear energy dangerous to the integrity of the human race and an insult and provocation of nature. Well, back in Japan, the situation is getting more serious at the Fukushima nuclear plant, where there's concern now that a potential shift in wind could send radiation to heavily populated areas. An explosion and fire there briefly pushed levels of radiation to around 167 times the average annual dose. In his statement, Patriarch Bartholomew also expressed the solidarity of the Orthodox world with the people of Japan. Well, turning now to China, police are reportedly preventing mourners from attending the funeral of a bishop in the country's underground Catholic church. Sources tell the website Asia News that the funeral for Bishop Andrew Hao-Jin Lee is scheduled for this Thursday. Police have surrounded the village where the funeral will take place to prevent people from attending. Bishop Jin Lee had spent at least 20 years in jail because of his fidelity to the Pope. He died last week at the age of 95. Meanwhile, bishops in the Middle East's largest Catholic church have elected their new leader, 71-year-old Bashara al-Rai, as the new Maronite Catholic patriarch. Al-Rai received more than 2/3 of the votes from Maronite bishops. He succeeds 91-year-old Cardinal Nasrallah Safir, who resigned last month because of his age. Meanwhile, from Cuba, a Nobel Peace Prize nominee is among the latest group of political prisoners set free by the government there. Cuba's bishops announced the release of Oscar Elias Bisset. Catholic news agency reports Bisset, a doctor, had been accused of activities that endangered state security. Also, the president of Human Rights Foundation, Bisset is among a small group of dissidents who will stay in Cuba. He was nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize this year by the Prime Minister of Hungary, who called Bisset a man of dignity and an ardent defender of human rights. Well, a Canadian couple that refused to remove their 1-year-old son from life support finally had their wish granted. Their son, also known as Baby Joseph, has been transferred from a Canadian hospital to a children's medical center in St. Louis, Missouri. The parents had sought the transfer after a Canadian medical panel ruled that the boy was in a persistent vegetative state, had no chance of recovery, and should be removed from life support. In a statement, Priest for Life director Father Frank Pavone, who helped with the transfer, said, "If there's a chance this boy can live, we have to explore every option." Here in the U.S., bishops today called on Catholics to contact their congressmen and urge them to continue funding programs that fight poverty overseas. The bishops joined Catholic Relief Services and Catholics Confront Global Poverty, making the call. They say the budget should not be balanced on the backs of poor people, and cuts to poverty assistance programs overseas will cost lives. Well, stay tuned. There's much more currents ahead. Just ahead, honoring the men and women who keep New York safe.
They never know whether they're going to get home that day. And that's why I think God is so important to them.
Welcome back. When the 9/11 health care bill passed the Senate in late December, New York's 2 senators called it a Christmas miracle. The bill provides more than $4 billion in health care coverage for first responders and others who became sick from working at Ground Zero following the terror attacks on September 11th. The city's police officers took the occasion of their annual communion breakfast to honor one of the senators for her support of the 9/11 health care bill. The day got started at Our Lady of Lourdes Parish in Middle Village, Queens, and we sent our cameras to check it out.
Well, it's a beautiful day, and it's nice to see Springfield Boulevard here empty and honoring our men in blue.
Today is the NYPD's annual communion breakfast. It's a wonderful occasion every year, usually the Sunday before St. Patrick's Day. This event takes place. Over 1,000 officers are here, then they march to the place where they have their breakfast. I was able to celebrate Mass for them, and it's always a great occasion to see them practicing their faith and to witness to their faith as officers in the NYPD. They put their lives on the line every day, and we're very grateful for their participation in the keeping law and order in our city. And protecting the citizens.
Every day is an opportunity for us to celebrate life, but yet for police officers, it's always an opportunity sometimes to realize their mortality as well. This morning, unfortunately, we had a police officer who died in the line of duty. It's a reminder to each police officer that works in the city that they never know whether they're going to get home that day. And that's why I think God is so important to them, and their faith is so important to strengthen them in that.
Every day, these men and women put their lives on the line, and we respect them for that. We praise them, and we want to support them.
It's absolutely critical for Catholic police officers to practice their faith and receive the sacraments. They see a lot of bad things out there, and a lot of people in their family can't really support them because they don't understand what they go through. And we need our faith. We need to turn to God to help us get through these times. You have to have faith in order to do the jobs that we do. You just can't go out there and not have faith. It's extremely critical in our job to have that.
Faith is very important to police officers. You know, during 9/11, we suffered a terrible blow, not only to the police department, but to the city and to our country. Today, we're honoring Senator Gillibrand from New York State for her work in passing the Zadroga bill, which is a bill to take care of those first responders to the World Trade Center tragedy. And today we want to say thank you to her for being involved in that bill and being pro on that bill.
She sponsored and worked very hard to get the bill for 9/11 passed. In fact, one of the officers we're honoring today who passed away just recently died from 9/11 causes. People today are suffering from 10 years ago. These first responders, these illnesses are just coming out in the last few years, aside from the thousands of people and the hundreds of civil servants who were killed that day.
Certainly puts things in perspective, seeing that, and of course honoring the men and women in blue of the NYPD. Thanks for all you do. Stay tuned. There's much more Currents coming up. When we return, Jesus loves the little children, and the Brooklyn Diocese welcomes them to the Catholic faith.
I'm looking forward to getting baptized, doing my first communion and my confirmation.
Finally tonight, Jesus once famously said to his disciples, "Let the little children come to me." And they did just that this weekend in the Brooklyn Diocese, close to 100 strong, as a matter of fact. These young men and women gathered at St. James Cathedral and took a major step on their journey to becoming fully initiated Catholics. They joined the ranks of the elect, those called by God to continue preparing to join the Catholic Church. Now, come Easter, these young men and women will receive the 3 sacraments of initiation: baptism, confirmation, and communion. But for now, they continue to prepare and reflect on what it will mean to become a part of the Catholic Church.
2 years ago, I was thinking about I should change. I should be a better person. I should be in God's hands. So that's when I started focusing and doing better.
Dear parents, godparents, and members of this assembly, these children have asked to be initiated into the sacramental life of the Church this Easter.
I'm looking forward to getting baptized, doing my first communion and my confirmation the Saturday before Easter. I wanted to get baptized and I want it to be with God. So like if I die when I get older, I will be with God.
77 children are going to be celebrating the rite of election adapted to their level. The bishop, this year it's Bishop Caggiano, in the name of God and the Church, are electing, choosing them. They're going to be baptized, receive confirmation and Eucharist. So this is like their intense preparation.
Now this is the first Saturday of Lent. Now the children who have been preparing for the last 2.5 years are getting ready to go into what I call high gear. Lent is really designed originally to prepare for baptism.
I was a little bit nervous because I had to go up there in front of a lot of people. Before, I didn't go to church. I didn't know nothing about Jesus Christ and God. And now, since I've been coming all the time, I know a lot about him. I learned a lot. I feel like part of Jesus' family now.
And also, boys and girls, remember, Easter is not graduation. It's the beginning of the rest of your life in Jesus. So, I promise to pray for you every single day.
When they are baptized, now for the first time, they are admitted to the mysteries. Now they come back for that 50-day period after Easter when they talk about their experience. That's the final period we call, it's got a fancy name, it's a Greek name, mystagogia.
I have to think about more things about my baptism. And like when I have my baptism, how I'm gonna feel and like questions in my head. Jesus talks to you in your mind and your heart, and Jesus always loves you, and he follows you wherever you go.
The next generation of the Catholic Church there, and some young people just really beginning their sort of spiritual journey. It's great to see the smiles on those faces. Well, as the world watches the situation in Japan worsen with each passing day, some are asking, where is God? We'll explore that question and more coming up on tomorrow night's show. And that does it for this evening's program. But until then, check us out online at currentsny.net. We're also on Facebook and on Twitter. For all of us here at Currents, I'm Matt McClure. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great night.